Thank you very much, Elise, for the warm welcome, and thank you all for being here today. It's really an honor to share this virtual space with you. And as Elise mentioned, my name is Brenna Simmons-St. I'm the executive director of a nonprofit based in Denver, Colorado called the Alliance for Collective Action. We are in the middle of a rebrand, a brand refresh. So our current name is the Alliance Center, and we are kind of toggling between two names before our brand refresh is officially launched this spring. So you're some of the first to hear our new name. Before I share with you about our work and the challenge I have for you today, I wanted to take you on a journey. Oops. And I asked you to go with me, stepping back about 10 to 12,000 years ago to start. And some of this might feel familiar to you, and some of it might be new, and some of it, I'll acknowledge, might actually be uncomfortable. All of those feelings are okay. So when I ponder deeply about what brought us to this time today, and I should also back up and say I am a systems practitioner, so I work at driving systems level change, and I'll share with you more about what I mean by that in a few minutes here. But when we ponder the systems that govern and shape our lives today, a lot of them, in my opinion, are broken, and they're not working. They're either working the exact way they were designed, or they're not working at all. And normal was broken. You know, it was broken for people and broken for the environment. And we see a lot of different evidence to that. And so as we are studying how we can move forward towards the vision of a regenerative future, which I'll define for you in a few moments here, it's important to understand where we came from and how did we get here. And so this is the journey I ask you to go on with me, stepping back about 12,000 years ago. Our ancestors at that time were mostly nomadic. They were hunters and gatherers, and they were roaming the lands for food and for shelter. And we are just coming out of the last ice age at that time. And while global temperatures were starting to normalize and our ancestors were really able to start to proliferate, about 10,000 years ago, there was an extreme drop in temperature. And it was estimated to be between 4 to 10 degrees Celsius. And that drop in temperature caused our nomadic ancestors to start to become more sedentary, to start to see ourselves as separate from nature, as nature being something we had to protect and defend ourselves from. And so we started to see the shift from nomadic hunters and gatherers to the first agricultural revolution, where communities began to be more sedentary, where we started to mold and shape the land to support what we needed to live in community together. And this was the first time that a lot of scientists will point to where this was the beginning of the separation of human from nature, seeing ourselves as separate from the environment around us. That guided our lives for a while. And then, we started to kind of settle into these sedentary practices and communal living. And then about 500 to 700 years ago, there was what was called the Little Ice Age and another extreme drop in temperature. And what happened at that time is it stress tested all of the systems that our ancestors created to support themselves. And we started to see widespread systemic interruptions, from famine to epidemics and social tensions, social uprisings. What happened after that, actually bringing us into the Middle Ages in the 15th and 16th century, was that dogmatic religions started to point to God as the reason why these were happening, and God had to be something we feared. And from that, God was seen as separate and apart from its creation. And so when we start to actually study what happened at that time, each of these stages furthered humans' conception of ourselves and our identity as separate from nature, separate from our creator, and separate from ourselves. At that time, we also started to see a huge separation of masculine and feminine, where the feminine energy and female identities started to be identified more with nature. I'm not going to get too much into religion for you, but if you study that time, that's also where a lot of the dogmatic prescriptions from female being identified with dark magic as well. So again, I won't go down that rabbit trail, but there's a lot of really interesting things to study there. The point being that each of these major evolutions and ages in our history further separated us from nature, from each other, man from woman, race, separating our color of skin as well. Then going into the scientific revolution in the 16th and 17th centuries, we started to break down everything into its smallest little parts to study the atoms and the molecules and what makes everything whole. But we kind of forgot to put it together again. There sat Humpty Dumpty with his shell broken, and we were studying each little part, but we forgot to put Humpty Dumpty back together again to understand the interconnectedness of all things that shape our lives. From the scientific revolution, we went into the industrial revolution, where we started to see nature as a commodity to exploit, to extract, and to use for our own benefit and gain. And that has provided all the luxuries we enjoy today, from the computers we're sitting on, to the heat in our homes, to the light switches and the water flowing through our faucets. And I'm not complaining about that. I enjoy all of those luxuries myself, but I do study it to understand what brought us to this point in time. From the Industrial Revolution, now we are in the technological revolution that we're in today, and it's the Anthropocene, which means this is the first era, the first epoch where we are in control and impacting the entire globe, where the first time a dominant species on the planet is truly impacting the entire globe. So if that's the journey we've been on, the journey of separation, where each of these ages have further driven a wedge between us as part of nature, what comes next? I would like to think the next age we move into is the age of regeneration. Now, regeneration is not synonymous with sustainability. They don't mean the same things. Please don't use them interchangeably. Sustainability is balance. It's where your inputs meet your outputs, and you can sustain anything for a given amount of time, including the degenerative, exploitive, extractive systems that govern our lives today. We've pushed ourselves to a breaking point. We've pushed Earth to a breaking point. And that is a lot of what we're seeing all around us every single day, whether we're consciously aware of it or not. So regeneration is really to renew, to heal, to restore. It's to make things better. And the age of regeneration is really a fundamental and philosophical shift where humans understand that we are a part of nature, where we appreciate the interconnectedness of all things, and we actually use that to our advantage. It's an evolution for our species that enables all life to thrive in a way that supports and enhances both our natural and our social support systems. It's a world where people and planet are treated with love, dignity, and respect. That is what we work on here at the Alliance for Collective Impact. Now, I mentioned I'm a systems thinker, and so this is very oversimplified, but I see two possible paths forward coming out of this technological age: the age of collapse and destruction, which we're seeing all around us today, or the age of healing and learning to thrive, leaning into the age of regeneration. Now, I oversimplified that, of course. Two possible scenarios with the future of our planet and species. Probably there's a lot of them, right? So there's nuances within each of those. But to make it really clear and easy, because our human brains need easy that we can categorize around, we have either collapse and destruction or regeneration and healing. Which camp are you in? I'm in camp regeneration all the way. So what are we doing about that? We are the Alliance Center right now. As I mentioned, we're moving to our new name, the Alliance for Collective Impact, and we were founded in 2004. And our purpose is to bring people together to develop and advance regenerative solutions for a regenerative future. We're currently based in Denver and have been for the last 2 decades. And the work that I'm about to share with you has actually gained a lot of national attention. And we're being pulled to expand this work nationally outside of Colorado starting this summer. And so even if you're not in Colorado, I invite you to engage with us, get in touch with me after the session, and we'd love to look at how we can collaborate together for the challenge that I will propose to you today. So we do believe in a regenerative future, as I mentioned earlier, and we define that as a future where people and planet are treated with love, dignity, and respect. To work towards this, our goal and our greatest service as an organization is a convener, and we unite the collective power of environmental and social movements so that together we can move from merely surviving to truly thriving. Now, please put a pin in that, because that is the bedrock of the challenge that I present to you today. We've been at this for 20 years here in Colorado. We know what works here where we live, and we also know that Colorado is unique. So our challenge to you is, as we spread our wings nationally in the months and years ahead, how can we continue to harness the collective power of environmental and social movements to allow our species to move to true thriving in harmony with nature? So again, we know what works here in Colorado. What works in your state? What works where you live? Each of these solutions, while valuable in input, and the pilot we have here in Colorado, we know need to be invited into community, and we know need to be nuanced for placed. So again, how do we do this beyond the test bed that we have right here in Colorado? In order for you to answer that, I think you need to know a little bit more about how we work. So we have two main impact arms of our organization. One is our nonprofit center, and it is a building. It's a 40,000 square foot building located in the heart of downtown Denver, where we support about 170 organizations a year, most of them being nonprofits, to do their work better and faster and with more positive impact than anyone could do alone. And we do that through the resources we offer in our shared space building, our event center, and also through the connective tissue and the network that we've built up over the last 20 years of government, academia, for-profit, nonprofit, community leaders, and philanthropists. Our building is all electric and it's LEED Platinum certified. We actually have 6 LEED certifications, more than any other historic building in the entire world. And so we're very intentional about leveraging our building as a demonstration site to walk the walk, to show how it is that you can model a commercial building that reduces the environmental impact while increasing human health and wellness and the connectivity that comes through a highly productive, highly efficient, highly connected workspace. And then we have the coalition, the Regenerative Recovery Coalition, which is also getting a name refresh. This was a name that we had coming out of the pandemic. So it was talking about the pandemic recovery. Moving forward, it will be called the Coalition for a Regenerative Future. Right now, we have 390 members in the state of Colorado across all different sectors: government, academia, for-profit, nonprofit, philanthropists, et cetera. And we convene this coalition to identify some of the largest problems our community is facing, identify solutions for those problems, and then wherever possible, move thought to action through these community-led solutions. And that's the work of the coalition. A little bit more about the Nonprofit Center, just given the topic of today, we are very data focused, learning from the past to help inform our forward moving action. And we do know that within our building, about 72% of all connections made are influenced by our organization or connected through our organization. So again, this has been a really stable fact since the last 2 decades, the last 20 years. And because of that, we've earned the reputation as the hub of sustainability in Colorado. We also know that our building currently serves about 3,000 people a year that come through our physical space to be connected to each other and to solutions. A sub-challenge that I have for you is, how do you move a group's connective tissue and organizing power, if it used to be primarily in person, to the virtual space? And that's something that we've done through the coalition, which I'll unpack for you here in just a few minutes. But I think it's worth noting, in the before days, before the pandemic hit, we would host about 450 events a year and bring through 20,000 people through our doors to be connected with each other and be connected with solutions. And as you can see right now, as the pandemic is starting to fade or still with us, depending on your opinion, we now serve about 3,000 people a year. So that number has shifted dramatically. And we still see a lot of that volume in the virtual space, but there is definite difference in virtual convening versus in-person convening. So kind of a subcurrent challenge if you choose to accept it. This is just a quick snapshot of some of the groups that we serve in our building. Some of these might be brands you recognize, depending on kind of where you are and if they're operating in your location. The point being, though, that we serve and support groups that focus on environmental, social, and economic well-being. A lot of the groups are local place-based, but we also do have national and international groups in our building as well. So when COVID hit, there was a quote from Winston Churchill that I've known since I was a little girl that just kept replaying in my head over and over and over and over again. Never let a good crisis go to waste. And COVID was certainly a crisis of epidemic proportions. And at the Alliance Center, I'm proud to say that we actually harnessed the change and the volatility and the challenge that COVID brought for extreme innovation and extreme creativity. The speaker before me, I thought, had amazing points to make on creativity. And a lot of that was carried into the essence and the spirit of the work that I'm about to share with you. So when the pandemic hit, we were very privileged as an organization. We'd already been working hybrid, so we were able to move to the virtual space very quickly. And we were able to, as a team, reflect deeply on what does the world need right now? What are our greatest strengths, and how can we best serve during this time of extreme crisis? In all candor, we were not the group to be sewing face masks or trying to distribute PPE to communities. But we were the group to convene some of the best and biggest thinkers of our time virtually to start to understand how COVID's changing our world and what's the future we want coming out of it. So during this deep reflection, we had 3 truths that surfaced. And in all honesty, a lot of these surfaced in deep reflection and deep meditation. The first truth was that COVID is changing all aspects of life as we know it, whether we like it or not. The second truth is that most people don't like change. And the third truth is that we cannot return to normal. Normal was broken. It was broken for people, and it was certainly broken for the planet. So how do we leverage these times of immense change to build forward, not slipping back to the status quo or to normal? So to answer those questions, we convened a series of 7 virtual sessions the summer of 2020, and you can remember what you were during that time. It was very volatile, from April to July. And these 7 sessions focused on the topics you see in front of you at the bottom right of your screen. And we asked attendees, how is COVID changing your life, and what's the future you want coming out of it? We had over 200 everyday citizens join these sessions, from farmers, ranchers, single mothers, CEOs. We had the governor of Colorado join, the lieutenant governor. We had over 75 members of our governor's staff join, as well as many elected officials through this process. So the beauty is that we had crowdsourced ideas from everyday citizens connected directly to the key decision makers in our state during some of the most volatile times that we've lived through, also on the coattails of some of the most unprecedented flow of funds through our state's economy. And I think we leveraged that to great impact, and I'll share that with you here in a minute. So coming out of the Emergent series, it was really clear through our network that we couldn't be done with just this series. We didn't start it with the vision of the coalition. We started it with the vision of crowdsourcing ideas to build forward. And it ended up, through demand of our audience, through demand of our network, that we formalized it through the Regenerative Recovery Coalition, which we've been operating since the fall of 2020. As you can see before you, it's a collaboration across many different sectors within our state. We have over 390 members all across the state of Colorado. We do track membership data. And so we know that within our organizational members, which represent about half of our membership, about 160 are organizations, the rest are citizens. We have over 28,000 jobs in Colorado's workforce and 7.2 billion in managed revenue, just to show you the size of the groups we work with, from small mom and pop shops all the way up to big billion-dollar companies. We also approach our work through an economic lens, and that's really where we can be that middle ground of environmental and social movements through the intersection point of our economy. And we look at this in a way that can deliver well-being by meeting human needs abundantly in ways that support and strengthen our natural and our social support systems. And it's important for us to come at this through an economic lens, because it allows us to open the doors to more conversations than if we're just talking about environmental conservation or if we're just talking about racial equity. The economy tends to be a middle ground that allows us to have more doors open for this collaboration and conversations. Now, during the Emergent series, we listened deeply for themes that were coming up during each of those series. Doesn't matter what topic, what are the themes that were coming up? We had 12 of them at the end. And when we studied those, we realized that 4 of them were kind of foundational elements that were more principles or philosophies, while 8 of them were more systems. And so we aligned them here in how you see in front of you, where we have 8 that are building blocks that are more systems: energy, agriculture, equity, governance, infrastructure. And then 4 of them that we feel need to be present in any type of work that we take on. And the first one is looking at systems level change. We are not trying to help the person experience homelessness get a bed for one night. We are not trying to help one house install solar. We are working at the root cause of the problem to address why we have chronic homelessness, to rapidly transition to renewable energy as an entire species across the globe. So systems level change is important for us. The second one is equity. Everything we work on has to be grounded in equity, and it tends to be racial equity and economic equity tend to be the themes that come up a lot. The third one is through collective action. If you look at these themes in front of you, no one organization can do this alone, not even close. So everything we do has to be done through collective action and collaboration. And the fourth foundational element is that any solution we work on needs to advance the health and well-being of people and planet. And so these building blocks and our 4 grounding principles are what guide our work and have guided our work since the coalition was formed in the end of 2020. So the coalition drives action in 3 main ways. The first way is we work with the executive and legislative branch of our state government. In many cases, we have official partnerships, contracts, MOUs to carry out work with our administration. And in other cases, we have kind of a handshake or a soft agreement for the collaboration that we engage with. I'll talk a little bit more about how we approach policy, but one of the biggest success indicators that we have of our coalition and our collective power of the environmental and social movements over the last 2 years is that we've been influential in 44 new state laws in Colorado that all advance the work and the priorities of our coalition members. And those 44 new state laws have directed just under $1 billion of state stimulus funding from the unprecedented flow of funds from our federal government over the last 2 years. So we've been able to identify that, talk to the decision makers, connect directly with the voice of community, and allocate those funds, direct them towards regenerative policies, projects, and initiatives that help heal and restore well-being for people and planet. The second way we drive action is by uplifting and catalyzing the work of our members within our 300.
Yes. Before you go on with this one, I just want to make a quick announcement because we did hit time. So for anybody who wants to join, Nan Bress is hosting a participant-led discussion on tech fails, I think. So if that's something you would like to do, that's happening in a separate room. And then if you do bail on us, if you do need to go and take a break, please remember to journal your experiences. And as Brenna is talking through and helping us have more understanding and context on this challenge, the Challenges crowdsourcing tool is actually working now. Hooray, I found the magic button. I didn't, Hector found the magic button. So that is working now too. And then Brenna, go ahead and finish giving us context on this. This is really useful.
Thank you, Elise, and sorry for the listeners. I ran over. I'm very passionate about this work. I could rattle your ear off all day long, but I promise I won't. I'll wrap up here in just a few more minutes. So the second way we drive change is uplifting and catalyzing the work of our members. As you can imagine, we have 390 members all across the state, and there's such good work going on. And so our role, and one of my greatest joys, is learning our members what they're working on, and we help remove barriers when we can, connect them directly to the decision makers, connect them to each other, to funders, to media. We do a lot of collaborative funding campaigns as well. And the third way we drive action is by pilot projects that are designed to scale and replicate. So similar to what the previous speaker was talking about, I so loved how when she talked about in really effective creative processes, you identify what's working and you carry that forward and you actually repurpose what's not working. And so you don't just keep it going, but you take the creative juices of stuff that has failed. Failure is actually a great success, I think, when you learn from it, and then you apply it to the work moving forward. And so we've done that a lot with our projects. So we have 3 main projects right now, and kind of carrying what I just said, we started maybe with 7 over the last 2 years, and we've learned what's working. We do rapid prototyping, we sunset what's not, and then we carry on what is working to the projects you see in front of you. So 3 main projects that I'll just give you broad brushstrokes. They're all very I think, impactful and inspirational in their own right. But the Climate and Energy Project is really looking at how we as Colorado phase off all of fossil fuels by the end of this decade. We're a top 5 and 7 oil and gas export state. We are a climate leader, but we also do export a lot of greenhouse gases and a lot of fossil fuels out of our state. And so we're actually in deep dialogue with oil and gas industry, with organized labor and our unions locally, with fence line and frontline communities that live on these extraction sites, as well as environmental groups and legislators, to craft a strategy to phase out all of fossil fuel production in our state over the next decade in a way that does not do economic harm and in a way that supports workforce transition in a human dignified way. We're also working on regenerative agriculture. So the rapid transition to renewable energy and phase out of fossil fuels is really important for the livability of our planet. But even if we did that tomorrow, there's still too much carbon in the atmosphere. We have to pull it out as fast as we can. The best, most cost-effective way to do that is through our soils and grasslands. So we're working here in Colorado to support a network of regenerative agricultural practitioners that use holistic land management practices to take carbon out of the atmosphere and improve the health of the soils. It also improves nutrient density of the food, water retention, and economic viability. So we have a lot of different things going on with that project I won't share for time's sake, but we do have something called the Healthy Soils Fund that we're welcoming collaborators to take this work beyond California and Colorado, where it's active now, to help support our agricultural producers in this journey. They need our help, and we need them. The last project is workforce development, really looking at how we upskill, reskill the workforce into both the clean energy economy and into regenerative ag to make sure that our workers are honored and our economy is strong during this transition. The last thing quickly here is our policy work. What I'll share with this is that we've turned how we do policy on its head. We don't work with policy wonks in the ivory tower, invite-only sessions to craft policy. We actually blow the walls off of that in a very inclusive way. We crowdsource policy from hundreds of citizens. We're in the process now of releasing our 3rd annual policy platform report that'll go out next week. And there are over 400 individual contributors from our state into that policy platform. And again, over the last 2 years, that same process resulted in 44 new state laws in Colorado and directed just under $1 billion of state funding. So wrapping up, my challenge for you. So that's what we've been at in Colorado, really looking at uniting the collective power in environmental and social movements through an economic lens to make the world a better place, using Colorado as a pilot. We've been invited to go nationally, and we're building our strategy to do that right now. We'd love to collaborate with all of you as we launch. It'll probably be July or August of this year. And we need to learn from you. Again, we know what works in Colorado, but how can we bring this to where you are? How do we frame the conversation? Who are the partners? How can we unite the collective power of environmental and social movements so that together we can learn to thrive? Thank you.
Thank you, Brenna. All right. Thank you. And thank you for everybody who's listening in. Brenna, I think, and you tell me if this is wrong, but I think I saw 4 potential challenges to add to that.
I tried to keep it simple with 1, but sorry about that, Elise.
Well, yeah, no, it's good. I think that's actually awesome. So tell me if this will work. But as we go through that presentation and pull the challenges out, you have the overriding challenge that you provided. And then you have these 4 projects that are examples of how that works in practice. And for me, I find, and I don't know if this is true of everybody else, but thinking about that, like, how do you take somebody who doesn't know what you're talking about into the place where they can be of use or in service to you so quickly? I found things like regenerative agriculture to be a lot easier to get my head around than the larger, how do I combine these movements in my area? So would it be appropriate for us to take, how do I combine these worlds in my area in service of regenerative agriculture, for example, or in service of upending policy development?
Sure. I think that works great.
Cool. Well, I think we will work on those challenges in the crowdsourcing area later. If anybody has any really fast, quick questions or comments for Brenna, we'll take those. But otherwise, we will let everybody be human for an hour. And all right, Brenna, thank you so much for joining us. Everyone else, you're welcome to join participant-led discussions and then mingle. Please don't forget, again, to record and capture your stories. How are you experiencing all of this, all of these wonderful topics? And we will see you back later.